What's up, everyone, and welcome to another Voice of Apple Valley podcast. I'm your host, Steve Famiano. Great to be back with you. It's been a while since we've done a podcast, and I'm excited about being back on here to talk, of course, what we usually talk about here on the Voice of Apple Valley podcast, and that's politics. Now, of course, one of the things we focus on here with the Voice of Apple Valley is local Apple Valley politics when it comes to the town council or maybe the school district and things like that. We haven't really had a discussion yet on the higher levels of government. And because this is, of course, an election season, and we're in the midst of the 2026 campaign, we've got the town council seats up for grabs. We've got various assembly and Senate seats for Sacramento. And of course, everybody's paying really close attention to the governor's race, which is happening here in California with Governor Newsom turning out. So that's a very competitive race. And there's another important race that's going to be happening for our area, which I don't know if you are really focusing on a lot, but I wanted to bring some attention to it because I think it's very critical that we not only not only focus on Apple Valley or maybe Sacramento, but we do focus on Washington, D.C., because a lot of the things that happen in Washington, D.C. affect us locally. And that's what we're going to discuss today with my guest who is going to join me. She is running for House District 23, which currently is led by Congressman Jay Obernolte. And I'm going to bring her on right now, and I think we're going to have a great discussion today about her candidacy and what we can expect if she is elected to House District 23. So I want to bring on my guest today, Tessa Lynn Hodge. How you doing, Tessa?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing great. And one thing I want to tell everybody, because it has been a struggle to actually get you on. There's been so many technical difficulties. I wanted to have you on a long, long time ago. We actually talked a while ago and had a really great phone conversation. And that's what got started getting you on. That's what got me started getting you on the podcast. And I just want to say thanks for being very patient with me and getting you on here. And I'm glad I was able to get you on before the primary, because we do have a primary coming up June 2nd.
Yes, we do.
You are on the ballot for House District 23. So before we get into the political kind of discussion, I don't know a lot about you still. I know a little bit about you from our phone conversation, and maybe some of the people out there that have their ballots ready that are being mailed out to them and they're receiving their ballots now. For those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, exactly which city you're from here in this area, a little family information, just so we can kind of set it up from there.
Absolutely. Well, Steve, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me. Yes, it has been a struggle, but I'm so glad to be here and that we're filming finally. So thank you so much.
You got it.
So I'm born and raised here in the district. My grandparents settled in the high desert in the 60s after my grandfather retired from the Air Force after 22 years. So They first lived in Hesperia, then they moved to Apple Valley. My grandmother was an RN, and she spent about 30 of her years as an RN at St. Mary's in Apple Valley. So my, family is very connected to the community. I was born at St. Mary's in the 80s. And so, when I say I am born and raised here, like I have been here. So I grew up between my dad's house, my mom's house, my grandparents' house. I've lived in Apple Valley, Hesperia, Victorville, Phelan, and Lucerne Valley. So I have lived all over the high desert. Grew up going to school here, obviously. I'm a graduate of Snow Line Joint Unified School District. I went to Victor Valley Community College, and then after graduating or, getting done with my first 2 years at VVC, I transferred to Cal State San Bernardino, where I got both my bachelor's and my master's in social work. And then I have spent my career as a social worker and a licensed clinical social worker, returning to St. Mary's as a medical social worker. So that was, a cool experience to be able to walk those same halls as my grandma. And I even got to work with some of the same, like some of my coworkers worked with her many, many years ago. And so, to have some of the same coworkers as my grandma, and then to just like work in the same hospital that you're born at is, an experience. But so I worked at Granite Hills High School as a mental health provider. I've worked for the County of San Bernardino in community crisis response and in policy and legislation. I've worked at SAC Health in Barstow. I currently own my own private practice. And so really, I've spent my entire life in the high desert. I currently live in Victorville. I've lived in Victorville as a homeowner for the last 16 years, 17 years. I don't know, something like that. And so the high desert is my home. This is my community. This is where my family is. My friends are. So yeah, I love it here, and I plan to spend the rest of my life here.
I don't know if it's appropriate to call you a desert rat, but I think that's what...
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I keep saying that because I use it affectionately. Like I use it affectionately, that like when you're born and raised here, you kind of just call yourself a desert rat. And like,
no, I think that's a compliment for many people. That's a compliment. That's why I didn't know if
yes.
I was pushing it there, maybe calling you a desert rat, because I didn't know if you were going to take it the wrong way. But
no, listen, I take it as a compliment, but it's so funny because anytime I've said that, anybody on my campaign or even like my husband is like, you can't, after you're in Congress, then you can call yourself a desert rat. And I'm like, but it's not, I'm like, it's
fine. That's funny. I've seen some of your campaign material and, your logo and all the other things like that. And I'm thinking, wow, that actually now would have been a pretty good campaign. Tessa, Lynn, Hodge, vote for the desert rat, I think. But I mean, I don't know.
Listen, I'll bring it up to my consultant. We'll talk about it. Maybe for the general, we'll switch it up.
That would be
party. Vote for the desert rat. There we go.
that would be funny. So I'm glad I could make you laugh. There's not enough laughing in politics, if you ask me.
There's not. Oh God.
So
there is.
Let me ask you this, because for those who may not know, and that's one of the things that I love to do with the Voice of Apple Valley is try to do education pieces for the public, because a lot of people, they might vote or they don't really pay close attention to politics. Can you explain to everybody a little bit about District 23 and where District 23 is and what that represents, which cities and how far it goes, and the areas that you would actually be representing if you were elected?
Absolutely. So the 23rd Congressional District is absolutely massive. So it is the high desert. So Victorville, Hesperia, Atalanta, Apple Valley, these areas. It goes out to Phelan, Pinion Hills. We have like a tiny bit of Wrightwood, just like a couple little streets of Wrightwood. But then we go out to like Pear Blossom. We have Lake Los Angeles. So we go into LA County. And then we go up to California City and to Ridgecrest. So we have part of Kern County. And then we come up to the Nevada border. So everything between here and the Nevada border, so Barstow, Baker, that is all the 23rd District. We come down to the Arizona border. So we have Blythe. So then we have Riverside County. And then we kind of come up, and then we have the Morongo Basin. So we have Joshua Tree, Yucca Valley, Morongo Valley, those areas out there. And then we have the mountains. So we have Big Bear, Lake Arrowhead, the mountain communities up there. And then we come down on the other side of the mountain. We have Loma Linda, part of Redlands, Yucaipa, Calamasa, Cherry Valley, part of Banning. And then there's a couple other little areas in Riverside that we have as well. So the district's huge.
Yeah, and I would say most of that is pretty much the Inland Empire, right? I mean, that's what everything you listed is Inland Empire area. So
yes,
I mean, it's an area. I would say it's a region that you understand very well. Because of the fact that you're from the high desert area, and even those of us that live in the high desert, I mean, we do understand, Riverside, San Bernardino, we're comfortable and familiar with these areas. So it's not an area that you would not, understand well and understand the needs of the district, which is District 23. So, and that'll get me into maybe some of the topics and some of the issues and the platform that you have. I know we talked a little bit about one of the biggest issues that is on the top of your mind and is part of your campaign is healthcare. Now, we didn't get into a lot of detail on that. When you say healthcare, when somebody hears that term healthcare, for you, what does that mean to you, and what are some of the biggest concerns that you have for this region when it comes to healthcare?
Absolutely. So, like you said, when we say healthcare, that can encompass a lot of different things. First and foremost, when we're talking about our rural areas, because all those areas that I listed, including here in the high desert, like we're, city, but we're still pretty rural, I would say. We have very limited access to healthcare. So I was born in 1988. Okay. I will be 38 years old on the 20th of this month. The same three hospitals that were here in 1988 are the same three hospitals that are here in 2026. But we have a huge population increase since 1988, but we haven't seen an increase in the number of hospitals that we have. And that is the case all across this district. There are areas of this district where people have to drive an hour, 2 hours to reach a hospital, to reach a specialist. Up in Ridgecrest, up in Ridgecrest, they have a hospital, but for a period of time, their labor and delivery unit actually closed. And so if you lived in Ridgecrest and you were pregnant, you were having to drive a significant distance if you were about to have that baby. And that is a story that we are going to see increase across our district because currently with the cuts, and I know that this is a controversial topic, but with the cuts to Medicaid and Medicare, 4 of the hospitals in this district are at risk of closing. So Barstow Community Hospital, the hospital out in the Morongo Basin, and both of the hospitals up in the mountains. Where are these people going to go? Well, people in Barstow are going to come to St. Mary's. And
I think a lot of them do. I think a lot of them do now. I mean, I know a lot of people in Barstow, and I'm not slamming Barstow Community Hospital, but I've heard a lot of people in Barstow will still come to St. Mary's.
Come here, yes.
Yeah.
And so we live in a healthcare desert where we don't have enough access to healthcare already. And so then when we talk about the shutting down of hospitals, that's going to increase our issues. The second part of that is that all across the country, we have a shortage of nurses, of doctors, of other healthcare specialties. So x-ray techs, sonogram technicians, all these different positions that make healthcare work. We have a shortage. And the issue is that going into the medical field is expensive. Medical education period, is expensive. And so we can build more hospitals, we can build more doctors' offices, and we can, expand the number of people that have healthcare insurance. But if we don't have enough doctors and nurses to fill these empty positions, that's going to do nothing. And so besides just increasing access to healthcare in our rural areas, we have to make sure that we're also addressing the back end of this and increasing the number of people going into the medical fields.
Yeah, it's that balance too, right? So, I mean, you could build the most spacious palatial hospital with, 10,000 beds and yep. Right. But if you have no doctors to serve it or no nurses to serve it, that's there's that balance between that. But let me back up on the hospital issue, because I think most here in the high desert can 100% relate to what you just talked about hospital beds. And I mean, it's been said, I think, and you could correct me on this, I've heard this, and I don't know, I hear a lot of numbers, but St. Mary's specifically, I believe, is at least 200 beds short right now to service. Is that an accurate number? I've heard numbers thrown around before, but
I don't know a specific number. But what I do know is, and I did medical social work there, and this was back in 2021 that I was there. I don't know the specific number of beds that the hospital is short, but here's what I do know is that there are times when patients who have been admitted to the hospital, they've been there for a couple of days. Okay, now they're ready to be discharged, but maybe they need to be discharged to a skilled nursing facility or home health care or a memory care facility or even a psychiatric facility, maybe. There are not enough of those beds, even. And so sometimes
Wow.
we might have a patient that's ready to be discharged, but they might be waiting for a bed in whatever follow-up care they're going to. And that might take another day or two for that to get lined up. And so meanwhile, we have a patient that is ready to be discharged, but we can't discharge them until we find them a bed somewhere. And sometimes that's not even up here. That might be down the hill, as we call it. That might be down the hill. And so, meanwhile, a person that is in the emergency room that has been seen and is like, okay, a doctor might be saying, okay, they need to be admitted to the hospital, but they're waiting for a bed to open up upstairs, right? And so then we have the people in the waiting room of the emergency room waiting for a spot to open up in the actual emergency room to be seen. And so it is this it's a domino effect. And so besides just the hospitals and increasing the number of beds in hospitals, because we do need to do that, we also need to increase the number of skilled nursing facilities, memory care facilities, psychiatric facilities, all of these different things in order to address the need across the board.
So let me ask you this. Say you are elected and you become our new congressperson. So as far as healthcare, what could you do or push at a federal level to help us locally, expedite some of these fulfilling some of these needs that we have from a healthcare standpoint?
Mm-hmm. So again, I know this might be a controversial answer, but we have to start treating rural healthcare different because rural healthcare is different. And so, from a federal standpoint, that means putting forth legislation that prioritizes rural healthcare. And I don't think that would be something that would be hard to do at the federal level across the aisle because the majority of the US is rural. If we look at, the flyover states, if we look at Central California, so many parts of the United States are rural areas. And so we have to start looking at, okay, how do we ensure that these rural communities have the funding to keep their hospitals open, to have enough beds for all of these different things? And that's going to mean that we prioritize that at the federal level. And so that means spending money, spending taxpayer money. And I know that's a scary thing for a lot of people, but that means that we have to make that a priority. And listen, there are so many other things that the federal government prioritizes that I don't feel should be a priority. I don't see why we wouldn't want our government to help us make sure that we have the resources here that we need, especially when we're looking at, so much. A lot of the 23rd is BLM land. And so that is land that we can't build on, right? And I think it should be BLM land because we're in a desert climate. We don't want overbuilding in our area, exerting our water resources. So I think it should remain BLM land. But that means that we have lower taxes coming into our communities because we just don't have the same amount of building. And a lot of us live here because we don't want these big cities, right? We don't want big cities around us. We like our big open desert. But there's a give and a take with that. And so if we want to keep our big open desert, if we want the land to remain BLM land so that our water is protected, then we need some help from the federal government to make sure that our healthcare is funded in these rural communities.
It's interesting. It just hit me when you're saying rural healthcare, but it's funny when you hear Washington D.C. talk about healthcare, it's just a lump sum of of all right. You don't think of like you said, you look at a lot of states and you think there's a lot of small towns spread out across, states across this country. And like you said, here, same thing, Lucerne's pretty close to Apple Valley, but if you go out to like Barstow, even though they have Barstow Hospital, and we have a different lifestyle and a different economy and everything else that happens in rural areas.
Yes.
So maybe it is a good idea the way you're talking about this and discussing healthcare as a Los Angeles big city type healthcare or a Victorville, Apple Valley, Barstow type healthcare. It's not like one size fits all.
Nope.
And I don't know that I can ever remember somebody in Washington, D.C. I don't know. I have to go back and do some more research on Jay Overnolte, but to see if he's ever discussed breaking that down separately from just, lumping everybody together in this one big healthcare bucket, right?
Well, and when you also look at rural healthcare, doctors and nurses practicing in rural healthcare also have to practice differently because, if you're in LA, right, and you go see your primary care doctor and you're having a heart issue, right? My heart's been racing. Your primary care doctor can say, okay, I'm gonna, put in a referral to send you to a cardiologist, right? And the cardiologist is probably practicing in the same building that your primary care doctor is at, or, maybe just down the street. It's no big deal to go see a cardiologist. If you're up here and you're trying to see a cardiologist, one, you're probably going to either have to wait a couple months to get into the cardiologist, or again, you've got to go down the hill to Loma Linda or to Kaiser Fontana or Ontario or something like that. If you are in the Morongo Basin, you're having to go to Eisenhower. And so we don't have specialists just at, beck and call. We don't have them readily available. And so doctors who practice in rural healthcare also have to practice differently because just sending somebody out to see a specialist isn't always an option. And so rural healthcare for doctors is actually increasingly becoming its own specialty. And so my vision, because Loma Linda is in the district and is a huge teaching hospital, my vision is to really help Loma Linda and other rural hospitals across the country, not rural hospitals, but teaching institutions across the country, expand their medical education programs into rural communities. So in the 23rd here, we have desert rural, we've got mountain rural, we've got some agriculture rural, and then we've got, smaller cities. We could be the hub of rural healthcare education for this country. The 23rd could be where you go to get specially trained for rural healthcare, no matter where you go in the country. And I have that vision for the 23rd. I want to see Loma Linda have a education facility in the Morongo Basin, up in the mountains, out in Baker, where you're going to get people from Vegas, like on the road to Vegas, right, from car accidents. Like I want to see the 23rd be the place where you go to get specially trained in rural healthcare.
You brought up the tax issue on this too, right? It's going to cost money. I mean, of course, everything costs money, so it is what it is. But I think the healthcare topic for many here in the high desert is one that really resonates because. My medical insurance, I pretty much have to go down the hill for just about everything when it comes to, like you said, specialty services, right?
Yep.
I got to go down the hill. I don't have the option to have it done here in the high desert at all. You can get basic, the basic MD stuff and things like that. So, I think. And look, I'm not a big tax spender guy either. I think we need to do a lot better sometimes with our tax dollars.
Absolutely.
But it's like supporting public safety issues. That's what the taxes are for, right? And
Yep.
So taking the tax money and helping develop a better healthcare, and I hate to use the term healthcare because, like I said, it just puts it all in one bucket. But helping maybe rural healthcare, which needs it more because, you think, yeah, you do. I think about Baker. I mean, if you're out in Baker or those Newberry Springs or something like that, and you need to see a
Mhm.
specialist, what are you doing? Are you actually driving 4 hours down the hill to go?
Yep.
I guess you are, right?
Yep. Yeah, you are. You really are. So I worked in Barstow for quite a few years in a couple different social work roles. And yes, you are driving here to the high desert if you're, or I mean, they're the high desert too, but you're driving here to like Victorville or Apple Valley. If you're lucky enough to be able to get an appointment with what you need here in Victorville, Apple Valley, or you're driving to San Bernardino, Ontario, Fontana, wherever it might be down the hill. And so that's a 2-3 hour drive for some people.
Yeah, and I don't know if you have the answer to this, or you've even thought about this, or given this any thought, but locally here for our area, I
Mm-hmm.
know the biggest thing is people talking about. You said we have the same 3 medical facilities here in the high desert that we've had forever, right? I hear St.
Mm-hmm.
Mary's is getting ready to expand a little bit. We had the talk of the joint hospital on the 15 freeway in Victorville between Kaiser and Providence. That didn't come. A lot of whatever political issues with that up in Sacramento, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what on a level of on a congressional level, if you do become the representative for District 23, how could you push the federal government in helping maybe expand, hospital beds here in the high desert region? How is that possible? I mean, I know it's a big, heavy lift to do that because you need other people to join in, but what could Washington do to help facilitate adding another hospital here in the high desert, or maybe even in the Inland Empire, or whatever? Where is the federal government's role in doing
Mm-hmm. So, and that's really, I mean, that's the role of a representative, right? Is to be in touch with their community, to listen to their community, to hear the community and hear their needs, and then to go to Washington and figure out, okay, how do I meet my community's needs? Now, at the federal level, we're talking, at a much larger level. And so that's
that?
really
Yeah.
where it comes down to working with Congress people from other states, from other areas, to get legislation passed that is going to benefit not just your area, but areas all across the country. And that's why I bring up, that most of the country is rural and is struggling with the same rural healthcare issue. And so at the federal level, it would be about me going to the federal level, really looking at, okay, what are the programs that are already in place? Can we modify these programs? Is there new legislation that can be introduced to make funding or resources available? And then it's coming back to the community and it's talking with state assembly members, it's talking with state senators, it's talking with local community members, with city councils, and letting them know, okay, these are the resources that are available. Here are the people from my office. They're going to help walk you through this federal process of getting these resources, getting these funds so that we can expand this hospital or we can get a new hospital. So essentially, the way I look at it is at the federal level, my job is to make sure that the resources are there and then bringing that information back and letting the people at the local level know this is how we do it. And here's my office, and they're going to help you get through this process.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. That's a pretty fair answer. And something you just said is very interesting. And we're going to get off the healthcare topic a little bit here, but something that I think is missing, um, and I know Jay Overnolte does these, I think they're called teletown halls or something like that. I get the messages all the time for those. What I haven't seen is more like coming to Apple Valley and actually, renting the conference room and getting with people to just be in person with them, right? Is that something that you're interested in? You're talking about coming back to the community. So I guess what I'm really asking is, in what way would you come back to the local communities? Because I know when you're in Washington, D.C., you're on the other side of the country, you're on the East Coast, spending a lot of time there. How would you connect locally with constituents here besides, say, these teleconferences? I think it's a teletown hall, I think they call them. Like, are you talking about actually getting out back in, even after being elected, if you were elected, getting back out in the community and still being a part of the community and basically walking the streets and talking to people?
Absolutely. And I want to reiterate, this is my home. um, this is my home. This is where I live. My dogs are here. I'm not going to fly my dogs back and forth. My dogs are here. So absolutely. Like my favorite restaurant is still going to be my favorite restaurant. My favorite
Wait. We got to find out which favorite restaurant in the desert.
My favorite restaurant is Tokyo Sushi on 7th Street.
Oh,
hands down. And listen, a couple years ago, my husband really spoiled me for my birthday and took me to Nobu, which is like the fancy sushi, right? Like I would rather go to Tokyo Sushi here on 7th Street. It is so good. So that's my favorite. But yeah, so outside of just like, this is my home, and of course I'm going to be in the community in my home. It's important to not just have town halls, for people to come to, although Jay doesn't do that either. But it's important to actually go to meetings, go to town council meetings and sit and be available after the meetings for people to come talk to you, or to hear what is happening in the town council meetings, to hear what people are bringing up to the town council meetings. It's important to go to, the school district meetings and to just be seen in the community. And I 100% plan to do that because, again, the role of a congressperson is to hear the needs of the community and then to go back to Washington and figure out, how do I meet the needs of my community? How do I be responsible to the people that elected me?
I think one thing, and I see this a lot, and it's not a direct attack on anybody that's currently elected in Washington, D.C., but there is a big disconnect sometimes. I can't speak for everybody there because I don't know what they do and what the representatives from Arkansas do. Maybe they do what you're talking about. Maybe they go back home and they go to the council meetings, right? But I've never heard anybody really say what you just said, which I think is fascinating, that even if you're elected to Congress, you would still come back home and go to the city of Victorville council meeting, or stop by the kind of Apple Valley Council meeting and kind of get the vibe of what's going on in the community, because I think it's critical that you would have to stay connected. You'd have to stay connected to home in this district to really represent the people that elected you to Congress, right? I mean, how are you going to know what the vibe is in District 23 if you're not here?
If you live in DC all the time, like Joe Bernalty. Sorry, well, I gotta rag on him a little bit. But no, yeah,
that's okay. No, that's
full time. How do you know what is truly happening in your district?
That's fine. I mean, that's a standard thing, I think, with a lot of people when they get elected, and that's a problem, right? Like, I mean, you seem down to earth to me, like very down to earth, and you seem connected to the community. But what happens is a lot of times people get elected and then they lose sight of this here, right? They lose sight of home in some regards. And I'm not saying that's what the Obernulty is doing. At some point, I will invite Jay on after the primary to, have a discussion with him too. But I think that's what happens a lot of times is people just get disconnected when they get to the office, and sometimes I think constituents, we're not asking for much, right? We just want a little bit, just give us a little bit, right? Keep us informed, hear our voice, hear our concerns, and like we just talked about healthcare. Healthcare is a big concern. It is. I think that's a good issue for you to be focused on, right? Because it's something that affects us all here in the high desert, like I said, down the hill, in that area. And it doesn't matter what color you vote for, right? It doesn't. Hey, if you have a heart attack, nobody's asking that. If you have a heart attack, nobody's asking you, hey, what's your political color, right? They're not asking that. They're just trying to save your life. So, well, besides healthcare, what what other issues or anything that you see in our area, in our district, would you like to focus on if elected to Congress?
So I think my other two, not I think, sorry, my other two big issues are, and I think that's the therapist coming out of me, because I'm a mental health provider, right? And so I get used to being in like therapist mode where it's like, well, I think maybe, could be, perhaps. So I have to get used to not doing that all the time. But so my other two big issues are education and then infrastructure and jobs. So with education, Apple Valley having a lot of budget issues, right? As are a lot of our other districts. Redlands Unified is having a lot of budget issues right now. And, you know, there's reasons here, there, and everywhere. But I think one of the biggest issues, first and foremost, is that when special education first came into play at the level of the federal government said, we are going to fund special education at 40%. The federal government currently is funding special education at about 13%. So they said, we're going to fund it at 40. And the school districts were like, cool, we're on board. We will do the special education thing. You're going to pay 40%. We will pay 60%. And now it's like, just kidding. We're going to pay 13%. And then you're responsible for everything else. And special education is expensive. Now, it is absolutely worth every single penny that is put into it. Special education is so important, not just for kids who need special education, but for all of our kids, because all of our kids are going to benefit from just an overall increase of success of all of our students. So having the federal government fund special education at the level that they are supposed to fund it, first and foremost, is a huge issue. And again, this is a priorities issue. We spend lots of money on lots of things. Why we wouldn't be focusing on the education of our youth, our future doctors and nurses, is beyond me. Why we wouldn't want to make sure that our kids have the education to take care of us when we are old, I think that's important.
And I'm getting older, so yeah, that's a good point. I agree with you on that one.
So that is key, that is critical, because when the school districts are having to make up that other 20-30% of funding, that's taking away from our general ed students, that's taking away from other services, that's taking away from positions, that's taking away from all these other areas. So ensuring that we have proper education funding, but then two, again, we go into this rural thing. Rural education is a lot different than education in LA or other cities. We have very different transportation needs for our kids. I was the school social worker for the non-traditional schools out in Snowline for a little bit. So again, going back to, I graduated from Snowline Joint Unified School District, and then I went back as a social worker. A lot of families in Snowline struggle to get their kids to school. And it's not because of they don't want their kids to go to school. It's because, well, they live 3 miles down a dirt road and they've got one car, and the parent that works has to take the car at 4:00 in the morning to go down the hill to work. And when it's dark and it's 3 miles down a dirt road, do you want your kid walking 3 miles down a dirt road in the dark where there's rattlesnakes and stray dogs and all of these other things? I lived in Phelan. I walked to my bus stop in Phelan. I can tell you I got chased by stray dogs.
Well, I can imagine. Let's not get started on the animal issue here in the high desert.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if Washington, D.C. can help with that issue, but
it's a huge issue.
That's a hot topic issue here for sure. We've been on a while now, so I want to hit on something you just said, because you had another key issue, is infrastructure. And let me I was trying to memorize this. Something you have posted I think this is really this is fascinating. I think people are going to really relate to this. This is on your website. It says here, and I might get a laugh out of you on this one, and some people might laugh when I read this. To be honest with you, it says District 23 needs more than just another car wash.
Wouldn't you agree?
Well, I like a clean truck. I like my truck clean, so I don't know, but I when I was looking through your website and just trying to do some research on you, and I saw that line, and I it just made me laugh because that tells me you are such a desert rat. And remember, that's a compliment, everybody. That's a compliment, that's not a slam. That's a compliment. But when I saw that, I just said, I got to write that down because that is just absolutely classic.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is your thing with? I'm not trying to get off track here of
sure.
You being elected to Congress, but what does you being elected to Congress? Oh, we lost you. How did that happen? Let me see. Hold on a second here. Let me bring her back up. There you go.
Here I
Oh,
am.
I don't know what happened. I might have hit the button. That might have been my fault. But so when you put that on your website,
Mm-hmm.
what were you thinking? What was car washes on your mind? Just like everybody else here in the desert, because everybody says we have too many car washes. What does District 23 needs more than just another car wash mean to you?
It means that we need jobs that you can actually support a family on and buy a home on. We need union jobs. We need more infrastructure up here that will actually support people so that we are not having to drive up and down the hill for work. And we're able to get our kids to the bus stop, and we're able to get our kids to the school, and we're not getting home at 7 o'clock at night because we sat in Cajon Pass traffic after getting off work at 4:30, and we can actually spend quality time with our family. So because like a car wash is a great introductory job maybe, but can you buy a home working at a car wash? Probably not. Can you raise a family working at a car wash? Probably not. And so when I talk about infrastructure and I talk about jobs, so there's a couple different pieces to that. So I am a huge proponent of small business. If that's a small plumbing business, like a family plumbing business, if that is a store, if it's a hardware bit, like whatever type of business, right? I am a small business owner. I have my own private practice. Um, we have to have supports in place for people to be able to have small businesses, especially again in our rural areas, because small businesses are more likely to reinvest into their communities. We were actually talking about that the other day.
True.
Small businesses are more likely to reinvest into their communities by supporting sports teams, by sponsoring events, by doing, very backpack giveaways, when school starts, various things, right? Small businesses are the fastest way for families to build generational wealth. And small businesses account for 99% of new jobs in the United States. And so when we talk about supporting small businesses, it's ensuring that small businesses have access to microloans, access to rural area specific loans that are just specific to rural small businesses, ensuring that we have infrastructure in place to help them build technical skills like accounting, how to run a business, how to market, how to do all these other things. So first and foremost, we need to support small business. Second, we need to ensure that we are inviting the appropriate industries into the 23rd. So healthcare, again, we can make the 23rd the access point for rural healthcare in the United States. We have our bases. We can absolutely continue to build on our aviation and logistics, but we need to do logistics smartly because we cannot just rely on warehouses in our rural areas, because that is only going to contribute to pollution, And again, our warehouse jobs that you can raise a family on, that you can buy a home on, not necessarily.
Yeah, a lot of those warehouse jobs too are becoming automated.
Yes.
I mean, the union guys are building the warehouses and doing the tilt up and all that stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
which creates some local jobs too, but they're not permanent local jobs. And the warehouses are a lot of them are going automated. So
Yes.
I fully understand that.
Mm-hmm. And I think we do also need to look at green energy. Now, that doesn't mean that we do great, big, huge, giant solar farms, because I am not for that. I think that these big, huge, giant solar farm projects are absolutely atrocious. But I am for solar projects when they utilize already available space, like rooftops. And so we need to be looking at, how do we bring in um, new industries that are appropriate for desert areas, that are going to bring jobs, bring union jobs, aren't going to wreck our desert, aren't going to deplete our water supply, um, and yeah, be something that you can own a home and raise a family on.
Well, I got to tell you, this one sentence here really stuck with me, and it might stick with a lot of people that are going to watch the podcast and see this. District 23 needs more than just another car wash. That's just an interesting line, and it really caught my attention. I appreciate you explaining that and going a little bit more into. We started talking about infrastructure, but you went into the jobs for the district too, which is very critical, right? Because even if you've left for Ontario Airport to take somebody to the airport at 3 in the morning, you see everybody driving down the hill to go to work. Even though that is part of the district, also I understand that. I understand
Mm-hmm.
that. But we want the whole district to be successful. But when you talk about our area up here, especially here in Apple Valley and things like that, I think that's very, very important. Well, we're going to get ready to wrap up here. I mean, I probably could talk to you for another couple of hours. We're just rolling here, a couple desert rats talking here. But I'm not an original desert rat, so I guess I can't claim that.
But you've been here quite a while, so like,
Yeah, I've been here a long time, so yeah, I guess yeah, I'll
we
call
can give
myself a
you
desert rat.
honorary desert rat, okay?
That's great. That works for me. That works for me. So I'm going to give you the last word here. So we've got the primary coming up on June 2nd. Let me actually everybody. I got some props for everybody because I want to show everybody. Here's my ballot. Oh, it's a big ballot. We got a big ballot this year.
It's because of the government race.
I have not voted yet. I just want everybody to know that I have not voted. And many people watching probably have not voted yet either. So there's my ballot. I have not marked anybody. I have not voted for District 23 yet. Just so you know too. And of course, you guys should get this. This is your
Mm-hmm.
this is your book here to read. You're in here. You're on the ballot. So
Yep, I have my candidate statement in all 4 counties in the voter guide. So
what would you say to somebody who has not voted yet? They maybe are undecided. I'm not a big fan of that term, but I think most people are decided. But what would you say to somebody that maybe somebody is looking for something different this election, right? Maybe like, what, I want to vote for somebody different. What would you say to somebody and just for them to mark you on the ballot?
well, I can say that I am definitely different. I when I first met with my current with my consultant, and I know everybody thinks consultant is a dirty word, but really a consultant's like main job is to just help you navigate like all of the things that like you have to do. Like, this is the deadline for this, and like this is the deadline for this, and so that's like a big part of what he does. But when I first met with him, and I was considering bringing him on the team, I said, I am not a traditional candidate. I'm never going to be a traditional candidate. I'm probably not going to be a traditional congressperson when I get into Congress. Because here's the thing, like I said, I'm a licensed clinical social worker. My career has been spent doing community-based mental health, school-based mental health, working in the hospitals. I, own my own private practice now. And that's what I love doing. And I never thought that I would get into politics. I've always been interested in it, always followed it, but never thought I would actually do it myself. If I had thought, I would not be covered in tattoos right now, because let me tell you, it makes it a lot harder. So I definitely never intended to get into politics, but here is where I find myself, because I do see a need for representation in our community that actually understands our community. And here's the thing, I don't think Jay Obernolte understands our community. I truly don't think he does. There was a piece of legislation that was up that he had said something along the lines of, well, I don't think that'll affect anybody in my district. And when I was hearing him say this, and I think it was about the SAVE Act, and, whether or not you agree with the SAVE Act or not, or, whatever it is, when you are asking somebody to spend $100 on a passport, $100 or more on a passport in order to vote, $100 for some people in this district is huge, massive, right? And for him to say that, I don't think that'll impact anybody in my district. He obviously hasn't been to Barstow. He obviously hasn't been to Baker. He obviously hasn't been to Apple Valley. Where, here in Victorville and Apple Valley, $100 for some people, $100 for me right now is a lot of money. Gas is, good God, gas is outrageous. But so I am not your traditional politician, because I never wanted to be a politician. I love this community. I care about this community. I will continue to live in this community. Like I said, my husband and my dogs are here, so I guess I kind of got to come back.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
It might be. And so I want this community to thrive for me, my family, my friends, and for the community that I love. And so when I get into Congress, I am going to work my hardest, not for the Democratic Party, not for anyone else, but for this community, because this is what I care about.
Yeah, and that's fair, and I appreciate you saying that. And we got the primary coming up. I told you this before we started recording, that if you do make it through and it's you and Jay Obernolte for the general election, I'm definitely going to have you back on again, and we'll get in a little bit more deeper into some of the issues. I'm not here right now to play gotcha right now or anything like that, because I want exposure for everybody that's running that wants to represent us, right? Like I said, I don't care if it's red, blue, purple, yellow, green, whatever. Everybody's got the color wheel going on there. At this point, it's irrelevant. I just want everybody that wants to represent us. I want the public to hear them. And I appreciate you coming on. And one of the things I didn't get a chance to say, and I want to say this, I want to make sure I say this. When people come on the Voice of Apple Valley podcast, there are no pre-planned questions. I do not pre-plan any of this out. I just let this free flow. And I appreciate you coming on without any set requirements or anything, and you not saying, oh well, Steve, no, don't ask me this, don't ask me that. You didn't say any of that to me, and that tells me a lot about somebody's character. So I just want to thank you personally for coming on, because I got to be honest with you, there are some people that will not come on with me because of that, because they're afraid I'm going to do some gotcha or whatever. That's not the point of this. The point of this is to educate people and give people like yourself, who are stepping up to do something very big, right? Doing what you're doing and running for Congress, and like you said, you never planned on doing this. That's a big task. So that alone, you should be thankful for, because not everybody wants to do that, right?
I sometimes ask myself, I'm like, what? How did I get here? What did I do? But I would do it again, because it's, win, lose, or draw, at the end of the day, I've gotten to see so many parts of the district that I wouldn't have gotten to see otherwise. I've gotten to have amazing conversations like this one. I've gotten to meet so many more members of my community. Again, I love this community. I love the desert. And people will be like, no, you don't. You're just saying that. No, I really love the desert. I really do. And so win, lose, or draw, like this has been an amazing experience. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to have gotten to do this, because it is a privilege, because it takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of time, and not everybody has that. And so I'm fortunate, I'm grateful for the opportunity to do this.
Yeah, and I thank you for being very open and willing to come on with me. Like I said, some people won't do it. Some people, they want to have those stipulations, right? They just, oh, no, you can't ask me this, or no, I got to know what you're asking me. And you were like, yeah, let's roll. And I really appreciate that. And like I said, that says a lot about who you are. And I just wanted to personally thank you for that. I was going to try and get that in the beginning, but I wasn't able to. So I appreciate your time today. Tessa Lynn Hodge, running for House District 23. June 2nd is the primary. Like I showed you guys, you got the primary book here and this big monstrous ballot right here that I still have to fill out. So you can tell I'm undecided. I guess you were talking about undecided. I guess I'm undecided on a few people too on here. So, but I will be getting my ballot filled out very soon. And I'm definitely not going to tell anybody who I'm voting for, because I told everybody I was not going to endorse anybody. But so that's still going to be a secret. But I do appreciate your time. And like I said, if you get through the primary, and it's you and Jay going against each other for this district, we're definitely going to have you back on again, hopefully multiple times, so we can really get into deeper issues. That. And yeah, no, I'd love to have you back on. It's been a great conversation. So thank you so much, Tessa, yeah. And we'll see you soon.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. All right, what a great conversation. I love that. It's like Tessa was talking about doing this. You get the chance to meet so many different people, and whether or not you're red or blue, or like I said, all these different political colors, if we could just get away from that sometimes and maybe look at the issues, what we talked about healthcare and education and infrastructure here for the high desert, and focusing on those things, I think sometimes it really doesn't matter red, blue, in between, So I really appreciate that conversation. Definitely going to keep you guys updated on what happens after the June 2nd primary with District 23. I'm going to be reaching out to Jay Obernolte to ask him to come on the Voice of Apple Valley podcast also after the primary, and then we'll see who his challenger is going to be. Could be Tessa, and there are a few other people that are running, and we'll see how that all plays out on June 2nd. But I appreciate you joining in today on another Voice of Apple Valley podcast. I'm Steve Famiano, and we'll see you soon.